Hi, welcome back to the Vintage Model Company. Today we're going to do the setup video for the Balsa Baron, which is one of our new kits. So if you've built your Balsa Baron and you want to know how to get it in the air, then follow this step-by-step guide to learn how. The first thing that we're going to do is to remove the propeller, because propellers are dangerous and we don't want to hurt ourselves or other people when we're messing around with the setup and the controls and stuff and flicking switches and changing settings. So yeah, let's just remove it with a pair of pliers by loosening this nut here. Now we can set that to one side, put the nut back on the end of the prop shaft and go to the next thing that we need to do. If you're in the UK, you need to make sure that you've got your pilot operator ID registration number on the aircraft somewhere. So make sure that you've done that. There's more information on that in the description, so just check that out. So we're not going to go into that in this video. Okay, first thing we're going to do is to just see if we've got the correct CG. So we're going to flip the plane over, attach our flight battery. By the way, with the Baron, you can actually put some of the scrap balsa we include in the kit over this part of the airframe and make it a full enclosed fuselage, but we've left it open like this just so it's a bit easier to build and a bit easier to access all of the electronics if you want to strip them out and use them in another plane. Do customise your planes however you want and use all of the materials included in the airframe kit to do what you want and to take your aircraft to the next level. But yes, talking about the CG, going back to what we're actually talking about, fix your battery to the Velcro underneath the main engine pod here. Now on all of our Balsa Basics planes, the CG is found by putting your fingers on the spar, so the spar is a good indicator of where the CG needs to be. So stick your fingers underneath the main spar like this, and then just sort of rest the plane. So I can see that that is tail heavy like that. That's clearly tail heavy, and you'd need to move your fingers back about 1.5 centimeters to get it, balanced like that. So what I'm going to do is just move the battery forward. Like this, lots of space underneath these planes. We've designed these planes to have a ton of space, so to move the battery up and down, so you can use lots of different battery types, lots of different sizes, and still get the right centre of gravity. So yeah, that's looking much better now. So with this small battery, you definitely need it closer to the front rather than quite pressed up against this access hole for the ESC lead. Now the next thing to do is to check our control direction and our throws. Now if you followed the manual that came with your transmitter, whatever transmitter you have, then you should know how to bind the plane up. Just follow that step by step. Every transmitter is different, but the manuals tell you exactly how to operate them. So yeah, please do look at that. This plane is already bound, so I'm just going to plug it in. Whilst the radio is turned on, of course, so it's instantly connected. And now I'm going to check the control direction. We're going to do this at the field with our pre-flight checks, but obviously you want to check this when you're in the workshop before heading out, just so that you can change anything here. There will be repetition in this video because you should be repeating these steps when you get to the field. Okay, so when I hold the transmitter over the top of the plane, I'm going to bang the stick over to the left, and the left aileron will come up to meet me. And if I bang it over to the right, then the right aileron will come up to meet the stick going that way, like that. And that's how I know that the plane's going to roll in the right way. With the elevator, I'm going to pull the stick back towards me, and the elevator should come up. So as I put the transmitter over the top of the plane, it comes up to meet the stick. Okay, cool. So that's all working properly. If you followed your binding procedures properly, the ESC should be calibrated so that the motor knows its high and low stop, so that is 0 and that is 100. Now I'm going to check the throws, which is how much travel your control surfaces have. That's going to move about 2 centimeters, yep, and that's about 2 centimeters the other way. And you need to check both of the ailerons because they might be slightly different. Yeah, that looks about right. With the elevator, that's also moving about that much, about 2 centimeters. And then downwards deflection, that's also about 2 centimeters. Brilliant. You can change the sensitivity of your controls in an advanced digital radio like this. On some of the radios that don't have screens like this, you can change the sensitivity digitally by using an app. So you can plug the radio into a phone or a computer and you can change the settings there. But you can also change it manually with the geometry of the arms and the push rods and the control horns on the aircraft. So you can use these different holes, you can space these out differently, and that will affect the sensitivity of the controls effectively, because you'll have more throw if you have the outer holes on the control arms, for instance. Might be worth playing around with that if you haven't got the right amount of throw, but if you've got about 2 centimeters, then you should be fine. Before going out to the field, it might be worth just demonstrating how a plane with ailerons like this flies and how you're supposed to fly it. So how you control a plane into a turn with an aileron aircraft like this is to roll the plane to a certain bank angle, and then when you've established this bank angle, you want to pull the stick back to bring the nose around. And then once you've come round in a turn, you want to stop pulling the plane back and then roll the plane back to straight and level flight. And then you can continue in a straight line. For good reason, this type of flying is called bank and yank. So you don't use a rudder, you just use the ailerons and the elevator to bank the plane and then yank the nose around. And then when you want to stop turning, again, as I say, you roll the plane back to straight and level flight. It is worth mentioning that this plane is a lot more aerobatic than, say, the Cub, which is a more docile flyer that uses just the elevator and the rudder for control. So that floats along, and it's quite difficult to get that into, say, an inverted attitude so that you roll the plane upside down and crash it into the ground. Although this is a good second plane, we'd probably recommend it as a second plane rather than a first plane. So if you've flown the Cub before, you'll have no problem flying this one. But yes, it is worth bearing in mind that maybe you should have a go on a simulator or something like that before flying the Baron. Alright, that being said, let's put the prop back on this plane, take it out to the field, do some pre-flight checks and put it into the air. Okay, we've done the setup in the studio, the sort of making sure everything is in order before we're coming out to the field. So now we're just going to do the final pre-flight checks before we release it into the sky. So what I'm going to do is the old control check. So I'm going to put the transmitter over the plane, and the high five method of pushing the controls over to the one side. So I'm taking the joystick, the main control stick, and I'm going to bang it over to the right, to the left, to the left, not the right. I'm getting my left and right confused, and I can see that that's come up to meet my stick, and this here, doing it on the right, and it's come up to meet me pushing this over to the right, so the control comes up. So you can tell that when this is in the air, when I push over to the right aileron has deflected upwards, and that will roll the plane to the right, and vice versa to the left. And now with the elevator, if I pull back, I can see that that's coming up to meet the joystick there. So I know that when I pull back, the tail is going to go down because that's deflected upwards, it's deflecting the air down, and the nose is going to raise. So all is good. I recommend doing this check always before a flight. No matter if you've flown this plane 100 times before, you could have not remembered that you've changed something on the radio, and that would make the controls go the wrong way. Obviously you don't want to be throwing it, pulling back, and the plane goes straight into the ground, because you've got that back to front. So that's one thing to bear in mind. Now we're going to just quickly check to see nothing's loose, so that's all correct, nothing's going to fall off, and then we can do the centre of gravity check. So quick tip, if you've got the ability to put a throttle cut on your transmitter, then I definitely recommend you do that. I'm going to switch that on now so that the throttle doesn't come on, and then I can hold the plane with the battery underneath. One tip here is to face into the wind, because if you're on the side like this, it could give you false readings as it lifts the tail up with the wind there. So I'm just going to hold it like this. I can see that it's slightly tail heavy, I think, because I've got my fingers on the spar. So the centre of gravity on this plane is on the spar, as mentioned earlier. But yeah, I can see it's slightly tail heavy, so I'm going to move the battery forward slightly. There we go, that's looking a lot more neutral. Alright, now we're going to face into the wind, but we're just going to give it a nice gentle toss forward, so we can feel the air coming underneath the wings, lifting the weight of the aircraft, and then we're just going to release it. So we're going to aim at a point about, I don't know, 20 metres away and throw it towards that. So I'm going to increase the power to about 50%. I can feel it tugging out of the hand, and then I'm going to let go. So if you have flown a couple of planes before, this will be an absolute doddle to fly.
However, if this is your first plane, then remember that it has got ailerons, so it's a bit twitchy, obviously on the roll. But yeah, just use nice gentle movements and don't over control the aircraft, just like a real plane in that regard. As you can see, it's tracking nice and straight there. Now I'm going to roll to one side, roll it out. So after a few circuits, we're just going to line the plane up into the wind, pull the nose back and decrease the throttle. Just feel it coming in, reacting to any instabilities, and pull back, and it's down. Nice and gently. So yes, hopefully you've learned something from this video. If you liked it, then click the like button. Check out the rest of the videos on the channel for more tips, and we'll see you on the next one. Subscribe as well. I forgot to say that. Alright, see you later.